All right, this lesson is on Photoshop and what it's used for, its interface such as palettes and tools, and creating, changing the settings of, and saving new documents. Photoshop is a digital imaging software used by photographers, designers, videographers, and 3D artists. I'm going to focus on sharing some of the ways that photographers and designers use Photoshop since that's how we're going to be using it in our class. Photographers use Photoshop for correcting exposure or modifying color, cropping and aligning or rotating photos to achieve better compositions, restoring and retouching compositions, combining multiple images into composites, and simulating a variety of photographic lens effects. Designers use Photoshop for creating textures for print and web design, manipulating type by using 3D extrusions and layer styles, creating comps of websites and mobile application designs, and applying special effects like blurs and lighting effects. Photoshop is fully integratable with many other Adobe softwares, and there's dozens of other types of people using Photoshop in their daily work, creating amazing projects and original artworks like these. Now that we understand what Photoshop is used for, let's move on to getting familiar with what the program looks like, also known as the interface, and the important tools and palettes we can access. So we're going to start off over here on the left-hand side. You'll notice you have a set of different tools that you can use. Towards the bottom here, you might notice that there's some that look like Illustrator, okay? One of the most important tools is your Move tool because it allows you to move your images around. And then other important tools are these selection tools that allow you to select different areas of your images to manipulate them, okay? But we're going to go through many of these tools in subsequent lessons, so I'm not going to go over all of them right now. But below this video, you will find a link to more information on the individual tools if you want to find out what each of them specifically does, okay? And then if we go up to the top here, you'll notice that similar to Illustrator, there are options. So anytime you click a tool, the options will change. On the right-hand side typically are your palettes. By default, they set themselves to the side here. If you go into Window, you can go into Workspace, and if you say Reset Essentials Workspace, it'll put all of these tools here. So for instance, if I were to have these in the way and I was missing palettes and I wanted to kind of get back to the essential palettes, I would go into Window, Workspace, and then Reset Essentials. It'll take your palettes back to the end and it'll open up all the palettes that you didn't have, that you had closed or that you had manipulated, okay? Now, some of the most important palettes that you'll find are going to be your Layers palette, very similar to Illustrator. Your Layers palette is where all your information is going to be stored, all your images, all your adjustment layers, that type of thing, okay? Another palette that's really important is your Adjustments palette. Anytime that you add a manipulation, like an adjustment layer, this will allow you to manipulate the details of that adjustment layer, okay? Other palettes that are important are in here. We click this one. It's your History palette. You can take it off the dock here. The History palette is basically like your redo and undo. It records a history of what you've been working on. Now, it doesn't record everything. It usually only goes back a certain number of steps. And as you redo things, it replaces other steps that you've done if you move back in the History palette. Now, this isn't making sense right now, but you'll see me refer to it in subsequent lectures. But basically, this records a trail of the steps that you have been doing, okay? So the History palette, really important. The Layers palette, really important. The Adjustments palette, really important, okay? We also have this Properties palette. This is going to come into play when we start doing things like selections. The Properties palette, anytime that you add adjustments or anything to anytime you add selections or adjustments and stuff, things will show up here in the Properties palette and you'll be able to manipulate them. It's kind of like the Appearance palette in Illustrator, where it records what properties are applied to different objects or photographs, okay? Okay, now let's show you how to create a document, change the settings of those documents, and save a document known as the PSD Photoshop document. Now please note that you will have a template to download and you will be using that instead, but this is just so that you get a sense for how that document was created and what the settings mean and how to save it, okay? Okay, so now to open up a new document, you would just go to File, New, and for this particular document, we said we're going to be working with 12 by 18. And it's going to be 12 inches in width and 18 inches in height, so that it's a portrait composition. The resolution we're going to be working with is 150. Okay. Now, in terms of the resolution, you want to make sure that you understand that 150 is what we use for this project. But if this was really a poster for print, your optimum resolution would be 300, okay, pixels per inch. And we're going to be working in RGB color mode, not because RGB is what you would do for print, but just so that we don't lose any of the quality and so that we're able to use all of our filters. We use RGB. Now, in theory, once you're done working with all of your documents, you can turn them into CMYK for print. It's just that RGB has the capacity to do more cool things with effects and stuff. So we're just going to leave it on RGB. But ultimately, if something's going to go to print, you have to convert this to CMYK. Okay. The background, we're just going to leave it white. That means that when our canvas pops up, it's going to be white. And then we're just going to leave these settings alone. Okay. We're going to go ahead and hit OK. And you should come up with a document that's set up like this. Okay. Now I'm going to go into my image here. And I'm going to go to image size, and I'm just going to verify that my document size here is 12 by 18, 150 resolution. And then if it's so, then it means you did it correctly. If it's not, then you want to probably close out that document and redo it again, or change the document settings here. Okay, so I'm going to hit OK. That's fine. Now what you want to do is remember to save your document. You want to go to File, Save As. You want to go ahead and put that in your desktop in your save folder. Okay. You want to name your document. And you want to make sure that it's Photoshop. Okay, so that it ends in PSD. It's important. And then you just want to click inside your save folder, inside your I led Garcia, don't delete, and then hit save. All right, so we want to go ahead and close out of that when you're done. And that's it. Okay, that concludes your lesson. If you have any questions, please be sure to contact me.